Millions of once viral day-in-the-life tech vlogs showed a world of catered lunches and rooftop coffee breaks. Today, that aesthetic has been replaced by the psychological exhaustion of the entry-level applicant. Individuals tracking 1,200 ghosted applications on a single spreadsheet. To understand how this career path became a bottleneck, we have to look past the cultural myths. The evidence suggests the golden age of computer science was less of a technological necessity and more of a byproduct of a specific financial window. Between 2015 and early 2022, the Federal Reserve maintained a near-zero interest rate policy. In a world where traditional assets offered almost no return, global capital flooded into venture capital and tech growth stocks, making capital effectively free for the industry. Under these conditions, the acquisition of technical talent became a form of strategic capital deployment. Tech companies engaged in talent hoarding, hiring engineers not to fulfill immediate operational demands, but to deny that talent to competitors, while signaling institutional strength to investors. The era of the pampered tech worker was a direct manifestation of a global financial bubble. Total compensation packages crossing the $500,000 mark were sustainable only as long as capital remained cheap. This surplus of capital broke down traditional professional barriers. The industry adopted a meritocratic narrative, suggesting that anyone who could solve algorithmic problems could bypass the costly, multi-year gatekeepers of medicine or law. This catalyzed a massive surge in the education pipeline. Enrollment caps were raised in traditional university computer science departments, and 12-week coding boot camps, funded by income share agreements, promised to turn novices into job-ready developers in months. In early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic acted as a historic accelerant. Lockdowns forced global economic and social activity entirely onto remote digital platforms. As revenue spiked, tech executives made a fundamental strategic miscalculation. They treated a temporary crisis-driven surge in digital utilization as a permanent shift in the baseline global economy, projecting that these linear growth curves would continue forever. The resulting hiring frenzy saw companies doubling their headcounts in months. Recruiters used streamlined remote technical panels and massive sign-on bonuses to pull in anyone with a technical background, institutionalizing a culture of aggressive counteroffer wars. By early 2022, the tech industry had built a wide entry pipeline based on the illusion of infinite digital expansion. As social distancing mandates were lifted, consumers returned to physical spaces. Hyperlinear e-commerce growth curves flatlined, reverting to their historical trends and leaving tech firms with massive, expensive overcapacities in human capital. The return of 40-year-high global inflation ended the era of cheap money. Central banks implemented aggressive interest rate hikes to combat rising costs. Because tech stocks are valued on future cash flows, these higher weights compressed their current valuations. Investors immediately demanded realized short-term earnings over speculative growth. Simultaneously, a change to Section 174 meant companies could no longer immediately deduct software development expenses. They were forced to amortize costs over 5 years. This shift made every developer significantly more expensive from a tax perspective overnight. The industry's operational paradigm inverted. Corporate survival now required a cold focus on capital efficiency and immediate margin expansion. The structural correction began with the rapid workforce reduction at Twitter. This proved to the rest of the sector that a global platform could remain functional with only the fraction of its original engineering headcount. A multi-year cascade of downsizing followed across Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft. By 2025, over 500,000 tech workers had been displaced globally. This injected hundreds of thousands of experienced mid-level engineers back into the open market. These professionals began competing for a sharply reduced pool of positions, taking up the oxygen in a hiring pipeline once reserved for new graduates. Remote work further diluted the local geographical advantage. A junior developer in a mid-tier market is now competing against top-tier graduates and laid-off Silicon Valley seniors simultaneously. It is common for a single remote posting to register 2,000 applicants within 48 hours. The entry-level shortage has evolved into a structural bottleneck, an overwhelming oversupply of experienced talent fighting for a rationalized pool of roles. Generative AI networks arrived in the workflow as quiet force multipliers, fundamentally expanding the operational reach of individual human developers. Data shows a productivity boost of up to 35% for developers using these tools. A lean team of 3 AI-augmented senior engineers can now match the functional output of a traditional team that previously required 8 people. As AI automates the low-complexity tasks like boilerplate generation and unit testing, the training grounds for novices are disappearing. This created the junior paradox, where entry-level listings now state strict requirements for multiple years of professional enterprise experience. Recruiters, overwhelmed by AI-spammed applications, have stopped manual resume reviews. They rely on automated algorithmic screenings, timed LeetCode challenges of increasing difficulty, as a first-line defense to shrink the candidate funnel. This shift has largely dismantled the low-skill floor that once provided a reliable onboarding ramp for novices. The era of the hyper-specialized novice is over. Employers now prioritize T-shaped professionals, developers who possess a broad baseline across the technical spectrum, combined with deep, verifiable specialization in a single domain. In this environment, the traditional 4-year computer science degree has researched as a non-negotiable filter. Corporate recruiting uses it to verify a candidate's understanding of foundational principles that don't change with shifting framework trends. Despite the friction for new entrants, the global software market remains structurally sound, projected to reach over $2 trillion by 2034. Capital is now moving toward high-complexity sectors. Talent deficits in AI infrastructure, data engineering, and zero-trust cybersecurity are driving massive compensation premiums for specialized engineers. The computer science industry is shed of its get-rich-quick illusions, maturing instead into an elite, highly rigorous, and heavily vetted engineering discipline. The era of capital-efficient building has begun.